instead of being shaped by the Spirit of God from inside. And so Paul addresses the physical body. And he says to them, he says, your body was not meant for this. There's a very clear sort of place for sexual relationships, and he begins to talk about it in the context of marriage. Now, let me just give you the best illustration I can give you. We live in Arizona. Some of y'all anybody have fireplaces in your house? Right? Now, like 8 of us. Okay. That's because the whole city feels like it's on fire. Okay. We don't need a fireplace. But I have a fireplace in my house. And one of the things my wife wanted was, she was like, I want a fireplace. I was like, okay. I just don't want to, at first we started out like, we're going to do one of those wood burning things, but I'm like, I'm not a lumberjack. I don't even have plaid. So like, although she's a little bit fancy on plaid. Anyway, so, but I'm like, I don't even like, let's just get one of those gas fireplaces, right? Those ones that you can like click, 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 poof, there it is, right? And then you can go to bed, click, 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 turn it off and you go to bed, right? And you don't have to worry about ashes and wood and stacking wood and cutting wood and whatever it is. And so here's the thing though. If you were to build a fire and you have a fireplace and you bring the wood and you begin to arrange it and you set this up and you light a fire in the fireplace, it is a very productive, inviting, comfortable, intimate, warm. It even has purpose. You could warm your entire house with this fireplace, right? I mean, there are literally people, I know it's so uncommon to us, there are people in our country, in different parts of our country, that they warm their house, even still today, some years gone by, with a wood-burning stove. They warm their house, instead of, flipping on the electric heater, they warm their house. And so there's tremendous amount of benefits of that fire in the right place. If you take that fire out of its fireplace, the rightful place, and you take it to your bedroom and start it, it has a completely different outcome. It's not inviting. It's not a positive. It's actually destructive. It will burn the house to the ground. And we are living in a world, as it relates to sex, we have taken sex out of its rightful place, and you have watched it burn our country, our culture, even churches, men of God, women of God, to the ground. Simply because it's out of place. It's out of God's design. Oh, we think we know better. I'll just do it my way, God. You don't know, God. I'll do it my way. And we take the fire into our bedroom. We take the fire into the kitchen. And we're going to light it up. It's all good. And then we burn the place to the ground. And when you think about the number of things that you read in the news today that have sex at the root of them. I mean, it wasn't just a few months ago, the media was all over Me Too, and rightfully so, and sexual abuse. What's the root issue? The root issue is the nature of the sinful nature of man. Absolutely, it's a sin issue. But the issue that we're seeing manifested is sexual sin. Can I tell you, if we do it God's way, that whole Me Too thing doesn't exist. Because there is no sexual deviancy. There is no sexual abuse. And some of you sitting here have suffered that. You've experienced that firsthand. You know what it is. You know what that's like. You've faced the sexual harassment. You've faced it. You've experienced it. And it's this God of sex that we've allowed outside of God's rightful place. And then we wonder why it's burning us to the ground. The root of it, abortion. Do you understand? Like, the last time I don't know if your mom explained this to you, where babies come from? She did? No? See me after church. Like, it's like we're focused on this outcome instead of, well, Pastor, you just can't expect people. Now, understand me, I'm not expecting ungodly people to be godly. We talked about that last week. The reality is that that's God's job to judge the outsider. But I just want you to realize something. Sexually transmitted diseases. If we do this God's way, if we operate with a biblical worldview, I know you're just, Pastor, you're talking a panacea, you're talking a fantasy. I know, I am, I get it. Fallen nature man, I get it. The sex has been a problem even when the Bible was written. It's been there. And so I understand. What I'm saying is we have continually taken what God designed and used it inappropriate in the wrong place, and it has burnt us to the ground. And we are living in the consequences of it. And most of what we're fighting about in the news headlines today has to do with sex at its root. Amen? And so He tells us this. He says that sex is not called for us. He says the two will become one. Here's what Paul is actually saying. Sex is more than sex. This is what you have to understand. If you have minimized sex into a physical act, like two animals, you completely misunderstand what sex is. Because sex, and this is, truthfully, inherently that sex is more than sex. Because sex is emotional, sex is relational, sex is spiritual. There is a bonding together. Listen to what Paul says. I'll just read it to you. He says this. He says, the two will become one flesh. But he who is joined to the Lord becomes one spirit with him. And so what Paul says is this. There is a bonding, a spiritual, emotional, relational bonding that God intended inside the context of marriage relationship that is to be permanent, that is supposed to be enhancing, that is supposed to be intimate. It's where you really want to go. It's the way you were really designed to have that kind of deep bonding that is for your entire life while you're here. And here's what Paul says. Sex is actually more than sex. Let me prove it to you. It's the difference between, as a kid, being bullied and beat up versus being sexually abused or raped. Totally different things. Right? If I was bullied and beat up on a playground as a kid, chances are right now,